Right now on Indianapolis This Week, a Sunday morning exclusive.
At the end of the day, these regulations may be found to be illegal.
The future of your light bill and the controversial plan that could impact jobs and prices. We talk one-on-one with former House Leader Richard Gephardt. Plus, the future of recycling in Indianapolis and it's Father's Day. And this Hoosier has the attention of dads across the country.
From RTV 6, the Indy Channel, this is Indianapolis This Week with Rafael Sanchez.
Our exclusive interview with Richard Gephardt is just 5 minutes away. But first, the big topics emerging this week. Joining us now are political insiders Kip 2 and Abdul Hakim Shabazz. A new campaign, gentlemen, to advocate same-sex marriage is underway. Will this make a difference?
Actually, I think the federal courts will make more of a difference. We're now at the point in the country where 27 states, either by court or by legislature, have recognized some kind of same-sex marriage. So that train has already left the station. It's coming to Indiana, whether anybody wants it to or not.
I think Abdul's right. I think the federal courts are going to make this decision. I hope these guys can get something done, but hopefully the courts will do it even before they can get into the next legislature.
For the city, of course, the new program now involving recycling waste management company Covanta is going to now help with the recycling program, possibly by building a $40 to $50 million recycling center. They will sort out the recyclables from the trash. City officials estimate that this will bring up the yearly recycled materials from 13,000 tons to 65,000 tons. Some are crying foul, saying this is not enough. They want expanded curbside recycling. Kip?
Well, I work with the Indiana Recycling Coalition, need to say that up front, and they have some strong concerns, and I share them personally as well as professionally. We curbside recycle at our house. I think this is going to probably lead to the elimination of that because the incentive for curbside recycling is going to be gone. I think it's a mistake by the mayor's office to enter into this contract. I think there needs to be more public conversation about this. In other jurisdictions where they've used what this is called a dirty MRF to try to separate these things, it's met with very limited success. We need a more robust curbside recycling. It's the future of our country. That's what we ought to be doing, not sending it to an incinerator.
If all I have to do is just put my trash out on the front lawn, that's all I care about. I do not have time to go through bottles and cans and plastics. I have more important things to do. If this does it and the machine can separate it, I am all for it.
I don't think there are more important things to do than save our environment, so I disagree with them.
On the national front, a new poll from 10 GOP pollsters says that supporting immigration reform is not a liability for the Republican Party. We saw that Eric Cantor, in part, lost his race in Virginia earlier this week. Are those polls correct?
I think they are. Here's the thing to remember about Eric Cantor. The big thing that he lost was constituent service. He was never home, didn't take care of his people. From everyone I spoke to in Virginia, his people were arrogant. When you called their office, they thought they were doing you a favor. So might have been some people upset about the immigration thing, but I don't think there are tons of people running across the border in the 7th Congressional District of Virginia. Republicans just need to man up, stand up, and accept some kind of comprehensive immigration reform because there are millions of people, in this country, and the harsh rhetoric tone really doesn't help, particularly when you're trying to do this thing called grow your party.
I think the message that a lot of people are trying to get out of that primary in Virginia is that immigration reform is dead. Certainly all the pundits in D.C. and the political class are saying that it's dead. I hope it's not dead. We need to have it. It's one of the things that's impeding our economy. But I do think some of the message that conservative Republicans are taking out of it is the very thing that we're not going to do immigration because our base doesn't want it. I think they're reading it wrong, just like Abdul said. I think it had as much to do with the guy just being as conservative as they can be, and Eric Cantor not paying attention to the home front.
One final issue, of course, is that the issue of outgoing Indiana State Treasurer Richard Murdoch. Back in the headlines, as you may recall, last weekend's Indiana GOP convention. Abdul, you were there covering that. According to our Scripps newspaper in Evansville, Mr. Murdoch said, quote, "The people of Germany in a free election selected the Nazi Party because they made great promises that appealed to them, because they were desperate and destitute." Murdoch said afterward that his comments were not meant as a direct comparison to President Obama and the Democratic Party. I should also point out that I reached out to the Murdoch camp. They were unable to visit with us this week because of scheduling difficulties. What happened with that comment?
What happened is what he said. He said, America's going bankrupt and just like Nazi Germany, and this is what we're on the road. I mean, to me, it was pretty simple and pretty cut and dry. And it was, once again, classic Richard Murdoch, open mouth, insert foot, calls Republicans nothing but grief and hassle.
And his deputy is now the nominee of the Republican Party, so we're going to see more of the same. Most likely.
You're not going to see more of the same. Kelly Mitchell is not.
She won with the Tea Party support.
Is that fair?
Well, I don't know. We're going to see, but I mean, she was his deputy. The point I want to make, he was wrong both on the substance. The actual federal deficit has been falling for 4 years in a row. It gets very much unreported, so he's wrong about the facts, and he's wrong about
our debt keeps growing.
And he's wrong about the analogy. So I mean, he was wrong on all fronts. The Republican Party nationally and in his state is too far to the right, and it's going to catch up with him.
Kelly Mitchell is not Richard Murdoch. As soon as we spoke to her after she got the nomination, she's like, hey, these remarks are inappropriate. They have no place, in our discussion. I'm moving forward.
Richard Murdoch is a smart man, a man who's a dedicated public servant. Did he make that statement because there's an audience for that? So in other words, I mean, I know a lot of folks like to paint him as being whatever, and I'm not going to go there because that's not my job. But I've seen him here talking to us. He's not crazy. He's not loony. So is what he's saying, is there an audience for it?
He got a standing ovation. So that's the thing that I find interesting, is that he has so many Republicans, the establishment Republicans, the people like Abdul, being critical and trying to separate themselves from those comments. But the fact of the matter is, the guy got a standing ovation. It is what the base of the Republican Party believes. It is what, the nominee now had to play to get the nomination. Had she
She did not have to play that. There were so many undecided delegates that she gave a great convention speech the night before. It was her personality that won. And in a three-way race, when the one person dropped off, they all went to her. It's that simple. You of all people should know how conventions work.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
You can also keep up to date with our insiders. Check out their Twitter handles and give us your opinion, and stay up with Kip, Abdul, Lara, and Jennifer throughout the week. A Sunday morning exclusive. The issue of clean energy and climate change are hot topics in Indiana, where we depend on a lot of coal to keep all the lights on. The Obama administration announced a plan 13 days ago on reducing carbon emissions from U.S. power plants. The plan is controversial, but former U.S. House Leader Richard Gephardt wants to focus on advanced coal technology, not carbon emission rules. Joining us now, former House Leader Richard Gephardt. Thank you for joining us on Indianapolis This Week. To talk about coal, these new proposed emission standards are controversial in Indiana, Mr. Gephardt. Some say that they will cost jobs and also cost regular Hoosiers on the utility bills. Opponents say that that's spot on. Environmentalists say that that is fear-mongering. How do you weigh in on this debate?
Well, I think you've got to be realistic and sensible about what you do about climate change and pollution in general. The truth is, we've done a great job in this country over the last 50 years dealing with emissions from coal-burning plants. 40% of our energy in the United States comes from coal. In states like Indiana and states in the Midwest, it may be even over 40%. So these new regulations, I think, are not realistic and not sensible, because they're going to, in the end, knock out coal burning as a way to produce electricity. It's going to hurt our economy, will hurt the average family to the tune of $1,200 a year more for their electric power. And my greatest argument is that we don't need to do this. We've got technology available today to capture the carbon as well as the other emissions from coal-burning plants. So let's put that technology in place over the next 10 or 20 years, and also give us the ability to sell that technology to China and India and other countries that are using coal primarily to produce electricity in their countries. If we could be perfect on carbon, and we aren't, if we don't get China and India to follow, it isn't going to mean a thing.
So this advanced coal technology, is it hard to get? I know that, for example, IPL, Indiana Power and Light here in Indianapolis, and Duke, they're spending millions of dollars to upgrade their facilities. If this technology is readily available, then why not use it as opposed to leaning on all these regulations?
Well, that's the point. Let's have a technological solution, not a regulatory solution. That's really the point. Yes, new coal-burning plants that have the latest technology today can collect and get rid of 25 to 30% of the carbon. As time goes on and we get sequestration, which means you capture it and put it in the ground, we can get rid of 90, even 100% 50% of the carbon from coal burning. The other point to be made is that even when you use natural gas, which people are saying is the interim fuel, you produce carbon. So we've got to apply these new technologies, whether you burn coal or whether you burn natural gas. It's needed in both cases. Well, I think probably at the end of the day, these regulations may be found to be illegal by the courts. So this could be a great conversation, but not an effective solution. So my hope is that after this, the bomb has gone off and everybody's yelling and screaming about this regulation, we can have that adult conversation, and maybe the president could go to Congress and ask for legislation that we could get a majority behind that would make sense for all parts of the country and for all kinds of fuel that produce electricity.
A perfect segue from coal to Congress. You were the House Majority Leader when you were in Congress. As you know, the Republican House Leader has resigned after losing his race in Virginia. Does that help or hurt the White House, or is that disruptive to the party, the Republican Party?
Well, it may be disruptive to the Republican Party, but we got to see when the smoke clears what really happens. There are a lot of great members of Congress in both parties. My hope is, and I'm sure the hope of many Republicans, is they can elect someone who can work with all the members of the Republican Party, but also can work with people on the Democratic side and even the administration. We've had far too little working together, in my view, in the last few years. First thing is people have to respect one another, and then they have to communicate with one another. And most importantly, I would always say to members, you got to listen to one another. Nobody knows everything. Nobody is God. Nobody has all the information. And so you have to learn from each other, and that's why the work in the committees and having communication on a day-to-day basis is so important. So it all starts with respect, and then you get to trust, and then you can get some good things done.
Mr. Gephardt, by the way, happy Father's Day. And thank you for joining us on Indianapolis this week. We appreciate your time. Getting college graduates to stay right here in Indiana. It's a bigger problem than you may think. Now, one county is doing what it can to keep its grads. Details after the break. Indiana has great public and private colleges, but once that diploma is in hand, many leave the state. It's known as the brain drain. Joining us now is Allison Everett. She's with the Grant County Economic Growth Council, a group dedicated to keeping more of its college graduates from leaving the region with incentives like the Grants for Grad program. Allison, welcome to the program. What is this Grants for Grads program all about?
Sure. The Grant for Grads program is an initiative of the Growth Council to retain an educated workforce in the Grant County community.
And the reality is that in many of our small Indiana towns and cities, people go to colleges because we do have great colleges, but then they leave, and you want to keep them, is my understanding.
Yes, of course. So big cities have the lights and glamour, but there are jobs to be had and great communities in Indiana, and specifically Grant for Grads is targeting college graduates of Grant County at Taylor University, Indiana Wesleyan University, Ivy Tech, and Marion. But the program has extended its reach, not only retaining students who are learning in Grant County, but also those who want to come back and call this place home.
And I want to show you some of the incentives, because these incentives is really what caught my attention. As part of this program, if you are an eligible home buyer, you will provide up to $5,000. If you're an eligible renter, up to $2,500 in a given year. And you also then offer homeowner education classes. So really, this is a way to say this, to dangle a nice carrot in front of someone who may be thinking about whether they should stay or not stay at home.
Definitely. This program has multiple components, as you mentioned. The tangible financial assistance, whether a recent college graduate is ready to make the plunge and purchase their first home, or if they're going to be going and down that route, then they need the homeowner education as a solid background. But the rental incentive is also a great fit for those young professionals who have taken their first job offer. And
have you seen much success so far?
Outstanding success. On paper, the program is running just as planned. So over 30 households have been affected by this, meaning that those people are choosing to live and work and stay in our community.
And if I want to know more about this program, if I'm sitting in Kokomo or somewhere in Greenwood and I want to get a hold of you, how do I connect with you to learn how to maybe replicate this program?
Sure, there's information on our website at www.grantcounty.com, and the Affordable Housing Corporation in Marion is actually who administers the program, but feel free to check out grantcounty.com to look for more information about the
Allison
website.
Everett, thank you so much. Best of luck with Grants for Grads, an amazing program. Thank you so much. The state's budget battle begins in January, but in June this month, lawmakers return to discuss fixes, not finances.
Lawmakers are scheduled to return to the State House for one day on Tuesday. They'll correct two bills that they passed earlier this session. One accidentally lessened the penalties for some serious crimes, and another mistakenly created a tax on some alternative fuels. Both were not on purpose. Stick with RTV6 for updates. You can also follow us on Twitter.
That's Katie Hines. Thank you so much. It's a day to remember fathers and why hundreds of dads are looking to this living room in central Indiana for advice. You're watching Indianapolis This Week. On this Father's Day, we dads take a lot of pride in our families. Pete the blogger has hundreds of followers. The Indianapolis father of three gave up his teaching job to stay at home with his three kids. He helps other dads navigate the hectic and loving world of child rearing through his blog, True Confessions of a Stay-at-Home Dad.
So, happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day to you too.
Thank you. And how do you make this work? Stay-at-home dad, and then you write about being a dad. How does it work?
Well, as long as they keep taking naps, I'll be able to keep getting some writing done.
Buddy, happy Father's Day.
Oh, thank you, buddy. Yeah, so I just kind of find little breaks in the day or after bedtime, stuff like that. Being home with the kids all day long gives me plenty of content.
What are parents asking you the most? So you're writing these columns, you're writing bi-monthly, bi-weekly. What do parents want to know from you as they see that you have this exciting dynamic in your home?
Mainly since my blog is about being a stay-at-home dad, I get a lot of questions about how did you know it was the right thing for you to do for your family. Most questions come from...
How did you know?
Well, I didn't at the time. But now, after I've been doing this for about 3 years, kind of looking back, I was able to see that, we kind of ran the numbers to check to make sure it was even plausible at first. We started looking at schedules. We had a completely chaotic year of kids in daycare and just kind of throwing whatever on the table for dinner that night. And we just kind of wanted to slow everything down a little bit and just slow the pace of our family's life down. And my wife was working a lot, and it just seemed like the right decision for our family at the time.
Number one advice for parents, for dads.
Number one advice for dads. Be ready to move at the pace of your children. There is never enough patience. You need to always kind of teach and retrain yourself to constantly be more patient with your kids. At least that's kind of how I'm trying to operate.
And you mentioned there are many rewards. It's just that one reward that you can say.
Right, yeah, you don't become a stay-at-home dad and this grand reward falls from the sky or something like that. There's little things. I get to go have lunch with this girl here at her elementary school. I get to go on field trips with the kids. I can volunteer at the preschool. There's lots of little things that kind of add up to a big reward, not just one big thing.
Do you find that more dads are doing this, or that families are considering this as they take a look at income and however that looks, that they're saying, one of us can stay home, and if it's the dad, right? Because so often it was the mom. But have you seen a shift in dads saying, you know what, I'll give it a try?
I think I don't get a lot of moms that are that come to my column and say, "Hey, Dad, what do you think?" There seem to be a lot of mom resources out there for that kind of thing. But there does seem to be more dads kind of making the decision.
Is it harder for dads to make that decision? I mean, are we still so sexist that it's mom that's supposed to stay at home and you're supposed to go to work and I'm supposed to go to work? Or do we need to change that?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't really see it. I don't think it's a mom versus dad thing, or I haven't had anybody say anything negative towards me. It's just a parent that wants to be home with their kids. Whether it's mom or dad, it doesn't matter.
No, but what I'm trying to figure out is, the dads that are writing to you and talking to you, was it a big decision for them? Are we seeing that it's okay for dad to be at home?
Yeah,
as opposed, right? Because so often it was mom.
Right.
We couldn't be June Cleaver. We had to be the guy with the suitcase, and we had to come back at 5.
The other guy.
The other guy.
Yeah. It is. It's a huge decision, whether it's mom or dad. It's one of the biggest decisions you make after you've figured out college and kids and all that other stuff. It's because a lot of people tie their identity to their work, and you really have to kind of take a step back and think about that kind of stuff.
Do you ever get tired?
Yeah, but like I said before, they take naps, so occasionally the house is quiet. And
so do you take a nap? Will they take a nap? Or
I've been known to take a nap a time or two, sure.
So you sleep on the job occasionally?
Occasionally, yeah.
Right. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day to you, too.
Pete the blogger, managing a busy place with a lot of love. After the break, a special group of athletes representing Indiana this week. After the break. Indiana's best are participating in the 2014 Special Olympic Games in New Jersey. 24 athletes are competing in several sports. The young men and women are from 24 Indiana counties. These champions, all of them will be back home next Saturday. All the best to Team Indiana. Have a great Father's Day. We'll see you next week.